Alright, hello, it is me, Smashinbob. What the hell? And welcome to another build showcase. So this is my Exsanguinate build. Yes. And so what is the build about? I wanted to build an Exsanguinate build. I really like the skill. Especially with chain, how it like just nicely goes over packs and things like that. And this is basically what I came up with. It was initially, I planned to make it as my league starter, but then I realized it's way too expensive to have it as a league starter. Then I forgot about it, and then I came back to it towards the end of the league. So this is 315. I'm gonna chuck in a tier 15 for the showcase. With Alva, because I'm farming some Alva temples. Okay. I'm just gonna get hail dunning. Chuck this here. Right. And go. Alright. So the build is not particularly like super fast map clear thing. It's not a super good bosser either, but it's kind of in between. It's and we do reach pretty good single target damage as well. So as you can see, it's pretty nice for clearing out packs, especially when they're close together. The build is also somewhat expensive. I'm entirely unsure how much currency I spend on it. I spent a lot. I mean, nothing too outrageous. And I was quite lucky with a few of the crafts as well. Do you want? Oh wait, I can't take immune fizz. Alright, good. It also works quite fine for logbook farming. It works very nice with expeditions, but expeditions are fairly easy, especially with our ranged builds. Yeah, and one of the really nice things about the build is that almost whatever it is, you're gonna one-tap it. I use Unleash in the build, so it's really good for just casting the spell once and just everything disappears, right? Is that it, Oliver? Wait, just check. Oh, wait, I need to switch this. This is a corruption room. Okay. Yes, good job, Oliver. Alright. Oh, not bad. 73? Didn't expect that. Alright. Alright, so that's the map showcase. Yeah, I'm not gonna go and also do boss to make so I don't do too much time for the video. So let's talk about a bit about the build and what it entails and how I made it. So basically, Exsanguinate, I scaled the physical damage over time. And I'm using, and this is a Victaria. I'm using a Victaria. So basically, with the Exsanguinate, in its like physical damage over time, you can scale it with 3 big auras, and that's like the first thing I noticed. So I was like, okay, how do I put all of these auras in? And this is basically how I did it. You can scale it with Pride, Malevolence, and Zealotry. So we have all of those auras. And also we use Victaria to help reduce less mana. And also because, now you might be thinking Generosity would be a problem because the auras wouldn't affect us, but everything that, oh wait, I was in Sense Stance. I just noticed the color of the thing. It's because my shortcut for to start the video recording is the same key. Alright, so Victoria's influence, right? So the problem with the generosity is that the generosity means that the auras cannot affect you, but it gives more effect to those auras, right? So, but we have all of the auras that are in Victoria do not affect us anyways. Like Pride, for instance, affects nearby enemies, and therefore is just a straight buff to Pride from the generosity, right? Then we have Enlighten. Herald of Purity is a buff. It's not an aura, so generosity does not work on it, and therefore we put it in just for the reduced reservation. Then we have Warbender, which again only affects enemies. Then we have Flash and Stone, which again affects enemies and not us, right? And then we have Maim to support the Flash and Stone. And then we have the other 2 big auras, the Zealotry and Malevolence, in the helmet with Enlighten. And then on top of that, we have a Petrified Blood, Arrogance, and Vitality, which is very important in our gloves, right? That we reserve on the life, obviously. So yeah, so that's the basic idea behind the build. Just shove basically 8 auras, and yeah, that's about it. A lot of this gear is very, very expensive. I have a +5 staff, with 140% spell damage, feast damage over time multiplier. I did wear quite a lower staff before. I only had a +2 instead of a +5. It's not a huge difference, but it like if you want to scale the damage up to like the most possible, obviously like the weapon is very important. This is where we have our Exsanguinate with Unleash, Brutality, Control Destruction, Chain, and Empower, and we sweep Swift Affliction in for single target instead of Chain, which is mostly just needed for like you know, endgame bosses and stuff. Right, helmet. So I have elevated reservation of skills and elevated nearby enemies take increased physical damage. You can not elevate those two mods. It'll be much cheaper to make those this helmet, and then you can settle that 2% missing reservation with a Conqueror's Efficiency instead. I pulled mine out of the build because I had enough to reserve without it.
I can't do this just yet.
So yeah, that's the helmet. Nothing too special. I mean, okay, yeah, I did elevate it though, but you know, it's not necessarily required. The amulet is a +2 flat life, feast damage over time multiplier. I got lucky with the Exalt on the ending and got light res. I also crafted minimum frenzy charges. We also grab another minimum frenzy on the Disciple of the Slaughter. That one also can be used to anoint the champion of the cause for more reduced reservation of skills if you're struggling with the reservation. And then the rings are, you know, life, flat life, resistances, and I also put another frenzy charge. And then I have a circle of guilt. You can, for like the most amount of damage to get out of this build, you can wear 2 of these. But I kind of want to have a pretty decent life pool so I don't die all the time. There in the Apothecary Gloves is flat life, feast dot, and some res. Stygian belt, you know, life, res. Abyssal socket is just flat life, enemies maimed take increased damage. And then just regular boots, you know, flat life, resistances, and movement speed. Right, and probably one of the more important things that you want to have in this build is the flask setup to be correct, at least for this league. I know flasks are going to change again next league, so this might be entirely different, but it is a life flask with instant recovery when on low life. And this will, I'll just turn off vitality and I'll show you. Even when we're like really, really low on life, 1 use of life flask and will heal us all the way up. Okay, I'll do it again. Takes a while to do it. And oh wait, boom, full life, right? And that is because we're always on low life, so we always get it instantly, and that's the mod you want to look for. It's not the other instant mod, it is the instant recovery when on low life. Then I have a Quicksilver, which is just, you know, movement speed. And then this is the setup for the flasks, right? So it is a bleed flask. So use when you start bleeding, immunity to bleed. Ignite, immunity to ignite, poison, immunity to poison. And all 3 of the flasks are the same. I use aquamarine just so I can open chests without getting frozen. and they have kind of the most amount of charges, right? Like it doesn't really matter what you use because they're like not ever gonna be active that often. And yeah, so that's to remove the sources of damage over time, right? That we can, because damage over time is one thing that will kill this build extremely fast. A lot of the time I wasn't even able to react to press a healing potion by the time I noticed the damage over time effect. Because how Petrified Blood works is that when you get to your life pool is basically about the same as your full maximum life would be against hits, and also we have fortify, so, and you know, we have some armor and stuff like that, and some reduced damage while they're taunted, so we're not like, we can handle the hits coming in quite well, but when it comes to damage over time, we only effectively have half of our maximum life pool, which, especially if you're not investing a lot of currency into the build and you reach only about 5k life, that's really low. And initially I would literally die every other map, and it was like 99% from damage over time effects. And then I swapped to this Flask setup and I was able to do like 20 maps without dying. It fixed the build completely, and that's basically for the low life builds an absolute must to protect yourself against the damage over time. Alright. So skill tree, we are a champion, so we get promo fortify, and we cannot be stunned. Really good defensive stuff. We have another defensive node here for less damage when we taunt somebody. And inspirational for increased effect of non-cursed auras, which is better than the increased damage here. Just the amount of auras we have that give us damage, just scaling this aura effect is really beneficial for damage. Okay, so then we come to the skill tree, right? So the skill tree is all about taking the mana reservation nodes. We travel a little bit down here to grab the cluster, to grab some life nodes, and then we go up here to the center bit and we travel to the reservation nodes. Then we travel to this reservation nodes, we travel to the mana reservation, to life nodes, grab some damage here, and we all the way to here to grab the second cluster, and then grab the Thread of Hope here, which helps grab the last set of reservation and some life nodes across, and then a pretty big damage node right here. And then also we could grab this spell block, notable here. So it's a pretty decent Thread of Hope here for the build. Here I grabbed some aura effect on the medium clusters, so it's effect of auras, reservation, effect on non-cursed auras, right? It's just the best damage wise in slot, and that's it. And all the jewels are just live damage, maybe some res, and yeah, that's basically the build. Right. I can show you in Petal Building our damage. So this is the I'm gonna just import the current one. So the 3 stages of Exsanguinate, because we always apply 3 stages immediately, right, because of the Unleash. And then we have for single target we can sweep to Swift Affliction, right, instead of chain. And in configuration, we'll set up a boss. And one other thing that's quite important is that eventually during the boss fight, your prime artifact will go to the maximum effect, and that will then, as you can see, give us a total DPS of 10 million, right? We can click here that we always wait for maximum unleash, right? Which is just generally true. So if we look at just at the damage over time, it's about 9 million-ish. So yeah, it's single target is quite decent, right? It's nothing special, nothing through the roof. But considering it's Exsanguinate, to me that's like more than enough damage, right? Now you will be having more like 5 million with less investment, or maybe even less, 3 to 4, depending how much you invest into the build. But you know, the important thing is to get enough colored Victario, get enough reservation like the Enlightened Gem, things like that. The +2 amulet is pretty important, but yeah, it is a fairly expensive build though, but I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I love the build, and yeah, and I will quite possibly even make this build for the next league. I'm not yet entirely sure, but so far I'm enjoying this build quite a bit. And yeah, and hopefully there will be no nerfs to Exsanguinate, even though I kind of doubt it. So yeah, so that's the build. You know, thank you for watching, and you know, stay sane, exiles.